Builder Funnel just turned 13, and as I was reflecting back on my journey since starting this company, I wanted to think about some of the core and key lessons, things that have been super pivotal in my journey in getting from where we started to where we are now, and hopefully some of those lessons will hit home and you'll be able to take those and apply those in your business. Hey, I'm Spencer Powell, and I'm the CEO over at Builder Funnel, and our company has helped our clients generate well over $150 million in remodeling and custom home projects. This channel, Builder Funnel TV, is where we share strategies, tactics, things we've learned along the way, both for our own company and our clients, and we like to share those in hopes that they work for you as well. And in today's video, I want to talk about some lessons I've learned. So Builder Funnel just turned 13. This is also episode 100 since I've been aiming for a weekly cadence. I think I've missed a few weeks here and there. Honestly, they didn't line up perfectly, but they were close enough. I figured, hey, we turned 13, episode 100. Let's do something a little bit different. So I was really reflecting back and thinking about some different lessons, and I wanted to pick out things that have been truly meaningful to me, big moments in the business, things I had to learn the hard way, things that I learned from somebody else that I was able to, bypass some of the hard-won lessons of going through something. So I've got 7 of them for you, and I hope that at the very least 1 or 2 of these will be very impactful for you. So let's dive into those. Honestly, the first one is splitting up and dividing roles between revenue and operations. This is something I wish I would have done way earlier. I think it was about 9 or 10 years in, honestly, when I fully committed to splitting out those roles. When you first start the business, you're in charge of bringing in business. That's how you get in business. You sell something to your first customer, but then you're usually the one delivering on that. And then as you grow a little bit, you kind of get stuck in that cycle of you market and sell, and then you're busy delivering, so you're not really selling. And then once you're done delivering, you go, oh my gosh, I got to sell some more. And you kind of get stuck in this trap. And you can kind of get through that and grind your way through that a little bit. You can hire some people to support in a couple of those areas. And so you can grow a decent way down the road managing those two yourself. What I found in my experience was as soon as I said, hey, I really need somebody to own operations, and then I'm going to own revenue, which is marketing and sales, that bucket. And it was about an 18-month, full-on training period of offloading everything, training, giving feedback, and there's still some of that. But I would say the first 9 months was the heavy transition period, and then the next 9 months was much lighter and more coaching, consulting. But as soon as I made that decision, what we did in about 10 years, we did in 2 years. So we doubled in that time frame. And so looking back on it, I wish I would have divided those roles sooner and just had somebody owning operations and then somebody owning revenue. And just thinking about those 2 buckets, they take big bandwidth in terms of brain bandwidth and thinking about the types of problems and issues going on here, and same with over here. So anyway, I'll leave it at there. I could probably talk for about 10 more minutes on that one, but that was lesson number 1, is splitting those two roles. The second one is really carving out a clear USP. What really makes you unique and different? How do you stand out in the marketplace? And we've gone through a couple of different iterations in our journey on this. If you don't know our background, we actually started as a division within a direct mail company. So the direct mail company was TMR Direct, and then I was getting into social and digital marketing, joined my dad's company over there. We started serving some customers, some in the remodeling space, some in the custom building space, some in totally different industries. We started going down this path for a couple of years and quickly realized that we were just trying to market and sell to any business. And it wasn't going that well. We weren't really developing anything that was unique about us. And so the first step was carving out that niche. And so for us, it was committing to an industry. We already had a lot of family internal knowledge. We had a few customers in that space that we'd already seen some success with. And so we just said, hey, we're just going to go all in on this. And we started saying no to everything else. And I think the equivalent in the remodeling, custom home space, especially remodeling, would be, hey, we do kitchens, baths, whole home, basement, deck, outdoor, all these things, but just saying, hey, we're kitchen specialists. That would be kind of carving out, one area of that and getting really, really good in that. Then there's also the design build angle. I think there's lots of different ways you can make yourself unique. But that really was a big inflection point for us at the time. It made marketing easier, it made sales easier, it made operations, our customers were happier, we were delivering more efficiently. And so it really just simplified a lot of things across the organization. All right, number 3 would be productizing the entry point for your customers. So for us, we have people come in and we say, hey, we've got to take a strategic approach to marketing. So you're going to go through the Remodeler Marketing Blueprint first to lay out the best plan. And then if you want to implement or you want us to implement, we can figure that out. But we don't want to just have tactics start going out the door without doing strategy first. Again, flipping it over to the construction side, design build, I think almost gets you there. It's a unique process, but it still isn't all the way productized. And I think people don't maybe put a label on it, put a name on it. So for us, we could have just said, hey, you start with us, we start with strategy. But you don't just start with strategy, you start with the Remodeler Marketing Blueprint. And there's a specific process that we've built over 13 years. This is the reason we do it this way. You get a better outcome. So again, same with remodel or custom home. You could say, hey, this is the special design build process that we follow. You could name it and you could say it's got these 18 steps or whatever it is. There's a reason we do it this way. And so what you're doing is you're transforming that first entry point. You're making the thing that somebody's going to buy from you, we call it productized, right? It's easier to buy the ABC design process or design, you could put some other label on it, and they can buy it for X dollars. And maybe that's just your design agreement or your design retainer or whatever you call it now, but you've got a special name on it and you've got a set price, and that's the way you get started there. And then you move into the build. But as soon as you do that, it kind of unlocks a couple things. One, it makes you look really different from all of your competition. And then 2, it actually allows you to start delegating the role of sales more effectively, because in design build, that person just needs to be able to sell the process. They don't need to be able to know all the ins and outs of construction and all the little details and all the questions that come up, because honestly, once they sell that, the design team is going to do all the designing and the planning, and then the construction team is going to do the build. And so you actually have the experts building the full proposal, and so the initial salesperson doesn't have to build the full proposal, so they don't have to have all that internal knowledge. So again, this is something that you'll probably see a lot more video content from me coming up, and I could probably spend another 20 minutes on it, but that was a huge pivotal moment for our company. All right, number 4, culture really does matter. I feel like that's been one of those words that's been thrown around on blog articles and talked about on podcasts, and people present on it at conferences, and really at the end of the day, it's not the ping pong tables or the happy hours and the office swag and all of that kind of stuff. It really comes down to core values. It's the communication. It's the meeting cadence and how those core values are woven into not only meetings and the purpose of those meetings, but it's how decisions get made, and you're honoring and benchmarking back to those core values and saying, hey, what's the right thing to do in this scenario? And maybe this isn't actually the best short term for the company, but it's the best long term, and it's doing the right thing. So we're going to make a decision that way, and being able to, again, benchmark those decisions off of those core values. And so we've worked really hard here at Builder Funnel to build that culture and not just have it, again, be ping pong tables and whatever is advertised out there is like, oh, it's a fun workplace. I don't think that's really what people are looking for. They're looking for a mission they can align with, a company that has core values that they also align with, and then they're looking for challenges and opportunity and things that they can progress towards. They want to keep learning. They want to keep advancing. And so, again, I think the culture really just becomes part of like the DNA of the company, and it makes a world of a difference. I feel like we've gone through different phases here where, especially early on, didn't really know what culture was, didn't know how to develop it, and then you start working on it and practicing it, and then over time you actually start to see your culture unfold, and then you realize that some of it you're guiding and steering, and then some of it, as more team members come into the mix, they kind of influence a little bit, and so then again that guides you to say, okay, how are we bringing people in? What are the questions we're asking in the interview process? And so for us, our first interview is a culture interview, and if you don't pass that one, it doesn't matter what your skills are. Like, you're just not going to get advanced to the next round, because that's part of our company DNA. So thinking about and spending time planning out what your culture is, what you want it to look like, has been super important for us. All right, number 5, training and team development. I feel like for us, we've taken the approach of bringing people in, training and developing from the ground up. It's really hard to do that. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of thoughtfulness into how you bring somebody on, the type of education you're giving them, the type of accountability that they have, the training resources that they have. But what I found is that if you take the time and effort to really build out solid training videos, training manuals, procedures, part of what you're doing is you're actually making it easier so that if somebody leaves for whatever reason, you can bring somebody in and you can get them up to speed a lot quicker. And that's going to shorten your cycle of really being able to advance really quickly as a company, because turnover is a natural part of the business cycle. And if it catches you off guard and you're like, wow, that was a key position, like we don't know how to replace this person, or we don't have a training path or anything like that, it kind of throws you as the owner back into that seat of kind of like maybe taking that on again until you can figure it out. And then you're not focused on, future looking stuff. You're just back in the fire. And so I think you can just go out and pay a little bit more and bring in talent. But I think if you build the training paths and you take the approach of development, it's a harder path initially, but I think it builds you kind of a longer, sturdier foundation as you think about, building your company. All right, number 6, the best investment that you can make is always in yourself. So into your own skills, into your own knowledge, into your own training. So I think about things like courses, masterminds, coaches, books, events, all of those types of things where you're going to go and learn from your peers, learn from somebody that's already done something, hire professional service to provide you with internal knowledge or knowledge that they have that you want access to. So over the years, I've spent 15 grand just to get in a room with some people that are way further down the road so I can learn from them. Spent thousands and tens of thousands on coaches and consultants. And then if there's ever a book or anything like that, just buy it automatically if it looks like it's something that I need to learn. And the cool thing about those things are that if you invest 10 grand into a new skill, that skill is most likely, depending on the skill, it could produce hundreds of thousands in revenue for you, or millions in revenue, depending on what the skill is. So you think about, okay, I need to be a better salesperson. Like, investing into you becoming a better salesperson, you're going to reap those rewards for the duration of you using that skill set. And so we oftentimes think about investing into the stock market or real estate or any of that, but if you pour all that money into your own skills, usually that's been the biggest return for me. So those are things that I continue to look at as we move ahead. And then the final one, number 7, is using artificial constraints to force growth. And so one of those would be a time constraint. So early on in the business, worked a lot of hours, 50, 60 hours a week, you're lifting it off the ground. And then I've gone through a couple of different pivot points with, kids being born, and just drawing certain parameters and going from like 50, 60 hours a week to 40 to 30. And really all that it was just me committing to an artificial constraint I put on myself. And I just said, hey, I'm only going to work within these hours of the day, or I'm only going to work these days and these hours. And you just draw your own boxes and you say, this is what I want. And then suddenly you kind of self-optimize around it. Like, stuff falls off your list, that was the least important stuff. You always get the critical things done. I think as humans, we're wired to like, you always gotta get this done before tomorrow, or gotta get this done by next week. You find a way to squeeze that in. So it's kind of that old saying is that, any task will take the time that you give it. And so if you give it a week, it'll take a week. If you give it a day, it'll take a day. If you give it an hour, it'll take an hour. And so drawing that artificial time constraint has been helpful. The other one that you could think about is money constraint, right? So at the beginning, usually you don't have money to invest in your business. It's just a lot of sweat equity and time. And so you have to think creatively how to solve problems, how to move the business forward. And then as you start to advance, you probably have a little bit of a cash cushion. You maybe could pay to solve a problem or, to advance. And that might be the right solution for that time. But I think thinking about it as if, what if I didn't have this money to invest? Like, say you had $10,000. What if I didn't have that $10,000? What if I only had $1,000? What if I had $0? How else would I attack this problem? And again, you might still spend the 10 and go, that's the best decision, I'm going to spend that. But you might unlock some other creative solutions that you hadn't thought about. So again, artificial constraint. And then the last one is an artificial constraint around timelines, not just time. A great example of this is when I wrote actually this book right here. It had been on my list for a long time, and I just said, you know what? I'm going to write this in 90 days. I have Q1 to write it. And so by putting that artificial constraint, I really had infinite time. I could have taken a year. I could have taken 5 years. Nobody would have ever known, right? It was just a project that I felt like I wanted to do, I needed to do. I felt like it would serve our audience. It would help a lot of people. I felt like it would be great for us as a company. And so I just said, all right, let's see if we can write it in 90 days. And so I got up early in the morning and I wrote, I just broke it down. I said, I think it needs to be about this many words. That's the, typical book. So if I'm shooting for that, then I need to write X number of words per day. Just broke it out and then attacked it. And I wrote the whole first draft in 90 days. And so that, again, was just like proof to me that, again, artificial constraints kind of force growth. Otherwise, I probably would have just said, I've got the whole year to write it. Probably wouldn't have worked on it that much in Q1 or Q2, maybe not Q3. And then the typical thing that happens is like, well, now I've only got Q4, like I'll never have enough time. So and then nothing ever happens. And so I would just urge you to think about if there's any of those like big projects that you're like, I just need to get this done. Put that artificial constraint on it and see if you can knock it out. All right, guys, that's what I got. Those were 7 really big, powerful lessons that I've learned, I feel like, over my business journey and been reflecting on. Hopefully at least one of them stood out that you can use and apply in your business. And we'll see you next time here on Builder Funnel TV.